Hello everyone and welcome to this video on question 3 on paper 1 of the AQA GCSE English language exam. So question 3 on paper 1 assesses assessment objective 2, and that is to explain, comment on and analyse how writers use language and structure to achieve effects and influence readers using relevant subject terminology to support their views. Now it actually assesses specifically the structure element of this assessment objective. So it assesses how the writer has structured a text, and it wants you to consider the structural features that have been used and also the effect of those structural features on the reader. So the things that you can think about are beginnings and endings, perspective shifts. You can look at structure at a paragraph level and also changes in topic. Okay, so these are the things that are specifically referenced in the mark scheme. Okay, so that's what you need to think about with question 3. So in order to obtain the top level for this question, you need to analyse the effects of the writer's choice of structural features, and you need to include examples of those structural features and use sophisticated and accurate use of subject terminology. So you need to be pulling out the structural features, providing an example, be that a quote or an example of the structural feature, and then using accurate subject terminology to describe that structural feature. Also considering the effect on the reader of those features. So the lowdown on this question is to really consider the effect of those structural features. Now it doesn't assess the language element of this assessment objective. So you don't need to analyse the words in the quotes that you've chosen. Again, I need to reiterate this, that you are being assessed on the structural features. Okay? This question focuses on the extract as a whole, and I would advise you to look at the beginning, middle and end of that source and think about how the perspective changes across that source. So what is the writer focusing on at the beginning? What are they focusing on in the middle? And what are they focusing on at the end? It is essentially simple point, quote, explain. And I would aim for 3 paragraphs for this question within 10 minutes. So the structural features that you can look for are here. So we've got lots of different ones. And again, I would say look at the beginning, middle and end of your source in order to assess how those structural features shape that source. So you can consider the setting, the character, whose narrative perspective we are reading from, the theme or topic that's evident at that particular point in the source, whose dialogue is being spoken, is there a repetition of a theme or a perspective, has the writer used flashbacks or foreshadowing, does the source have a linear or non-linear structure, and then you can think about any contrasts in ideas and also what the climax of the source is. So this is my question 3 paper 1 paragraph structure. So your point is the part where you actually answer, where does the writer focus your attention? So what do they actually focus on at that part in the source? Okay, then you pop your quote in, and then you need to consider the effect of the structural technique. Okay, and I will give you some effects that you can learn, and when you go into the exam you'll probably find that most of the effects are similar to that list, so take note of those in just a moment. Again, there's no language analysis, so do not focus on the words in the quote. They're not assessing you on language analysis for this question, okay? And top marks go to those students who really consider why there is a focus shift. There will be a focus shift within the extract. So really, if you can consider why the writer has chosen to shift focus from the beginning of the source to the end, then those top marks go to you. Okay, so I have an extract here from chapter 4 of War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, and I just want to go through this extract with you and consider how the writer has used structure to focus your attention at certain points in that extract. So at the beginning, if you see, it discusses how the cylinder, which we don't know anything about, is there with the people, and this cylinder and the thing are mentioned, okay? So what I've said here is the writer focuses on the description of the cylinder, emphasising its non-human attributes, okay? So the structural feature would be description. It's an unanswered question because the writer says the thing. It's a dramatic opening to the extract because it's unclear who the character is and the enemy is faceless, so we don't know anything about this enemy, okay? So right at the very beginning of the source, we learn that there is something which is non-human, but we're unsure why it's there and what it's doing, okay? So it's a very, very dramatic opening. Now, as you read the source through, incidentally, you can get this extract from my website, asiaexams.wordpress.com. But as you read this extract through, you realise that the tension builds, okay? And that's because the writer describes the creature emerging from the cylinder, okay? As we learn more and more about the intentions of the creature itself, the tension builds within the extract. So as the extract moves on, from the middle we learn that the description of the thing is that it is the size of a bear. Obviously that's very dramatic and it's rising slowly. So we've got continued description of the thing. And then as we near the end, we learn that this monster has vanished. And again, we don't really know that much about this monster. And that this person is running madly away. Okay, so we've got description of the intentions of the creature. Okay, so the climax of the source really is the emergence of the creature right in the middle of the extract. And the writer focuses on the description of the Martian. So you could say that the structural feature here is perhaps the description of the Martian, which leads to there being a climax. And then at the end, the writer focuses on the individual's attempt to escape, okay? So we've got a sense of hope that perhaps he has escaped, although there is a sense of horror as well, as we're unsure as to whether he will be caught. So we've got focus shift. So at the beginning we've got the description of the creature, the middle we've got the emergence of the creature and the climax of the extract, and then at the end we've got a focus on the individual's attempt to escape, okay, and we're left with almost a cliffhanger as to whether that character will escape the intentions of that Martian. Right, so some useful sentence starters you can use for this answer are these here. So we've got structure is initially used to, the opening line is structurally interesting because, the continued shift in focus allows the audience to, or the climax of the piece is. So we could use that with the middle of that extract. So the climax of the piece is and why it is the climax. The writer has foregrounded the idea of. The narrative voice is significant as or because. Okay, as the source develops, we see a change in. So again, that's relevant to what we've just read, that as the source develops, the tension builds because we learn about the intentions of the creature. Okay, and then we've got towards the end of the extract and at the end of the source. Okay, so those are the kinds of sentence starters you can use to help you write your answer. Okay, so remember that you need to write about the beginning, middle and end of the source that you've been given. Right, so that's part 1 of this video on question 3 on paper 1. In part 2, I'm going to give you some useful effects that you can learn and also show you a paragraph structure for this question. It will also contain a level 4 sample answer, so you can download that from my website and have a look at that in more detail. Okay, thanks for listening. See you soon.